and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we are so glad to have you here. New Jersey's senior senator Bob Menendez is currently on trial, facing federal bribery charges. Now he's running for re-election, not as a Democrat, but as an independent. We're going to discuss what his candidacy means with Micah Rasmussen, director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. First, though, we're going to take a look at the recent primary election and what is ahead in the general election. Joining me now is former Governor of New Jersey, Donald DiFrancesco. Governor DiFrancesco, welcome to the show. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, let's start at the beginning with Senator Bob Menendez, because 9 months ago, had he not been charged, we wouldn't be where we are now. So he's obviously facing federal corruption charges, didn't run in the primary. Now he's running for re-election, but as an independent. So let's just get your thoughts on how we got to where we are.
Well, of course, Bob had a trial once before and was not convicted in that trial. And now with this trial, I think the parties really abandoned him on this time around, because I think they feel like it's a loser and they didn't want to lose the seat. So along came Tammy Murphy, Andy Kim, and others to try to win this open seat, so to speak. And so here we are with Andy Kim winning the primary easily because Tammy Murphy dropped out. And he's very well known in South Jersey. People like him. He's been a congressman. And on our side, and again, an open seat, there were several candidates. And Curtis Bashaw from South Jersey was able to prevail. He had the party line in many counties. And I think that helped him a lot to win over Christine, the mayor of Mendham. Right. So, we have this matchup, Andy Kim versus this businessman, Curtis Bashaw, and Bob Menendez is a wild card, because if he is not convicted and runs as an independent, I believe he would draw a lot of support.
How much support do you think he would draw? Because what it took in order for him to run as an independent, he had to get a couple, 800 signatures, I believe. He has a few thousand. So if he's exonerated and found not guilty, it's going to impact Andy Kim, not so much Curtis Bashaw.
Yeah, because Andy Kim is South Jersey and Bob Menendez is North Jersey, and the votes are in the north. And Bob Menendez would draw a lot of support from Andy Kim. I'm pretty sure about that, which would help Curtis Bashaw.
Even with even with this cloud of corruption around him, because you don't know how the courts are going to go. You don't know what's going to happen.
That's true, but the Hispanic vote in New Jersey is huge, for one thing, and I think that there's a Democratic base that he's had for a while that would try to stick with him.
Wow. Wow. So what does this mean for Republicans? There hasn't been a Republican who's won this seat since the 1970s. Bob Franks couldn't do it. Nelson Fenwick couldn't do it. I mean,
right.
So what are the Republicans? I mean, and they've got a candidate, Curtis Bashaw, who was a little bit more moderate, which is good in a general election. He was able to beat someone who had Donald Trump's endorsement. So what's the buzz amongst Republicans? How likely, whether or not he's convicted, not convicted, how confident do they feel going into this election that they could actually pull this off?
There's not a lot of buzz about it yet, I have to admit, in the party, and I think there should be. I've been around a long time. The last time we won was 1972 when Cliff Case won, and he lost to the primary in 1978 to Jeff Bell, who then lost to Bill Bradley. Okay. So the next close race was Chuck Italian almost beat Frank Lautenberg after Frank Lautenberg had beaten, of course, Millicent Fenwick, as you mentioned, in 82. So there really haven't been close races. Bob came very close in another open seat. So when we've had an open seat, it's been very competitive. Bob was a known quantity and was a congressman. Now, Curtis Bashaw has never run before, so it's a little different. His name recognition is low, but his job is to energize the party, to spend a lot of money against Andy Kim, to paint Andy Kim, I think, as a very progressive person, even though in New Jersey we're very moderate. We are a moderate state. And so I think Curtis Bashaw has a real shot because Trump is unbelievably doing pretty well in New Jersey as compared to the past.
Right.
And that's probably more of an anti-Biden thing, people just not seeing Biden as a candidate. So I think that helps Trump to some degree in New Jersey, and that would help Curtis Bashaw. So I think it's going to be a competitive seat, very competitive election for the first time in a while. And I think that his job is to energize the base for him.
Right. Right. Yeah, and the Trump factor, he drew a huge crowd down in South Jersey about a month or so ago for one of his campaigns. But like you said, it may not even be so much pro-Trump, it may be anti-Biden when you look at it here in New Jersey that helps Curtis Bayshaw.
Yeah, no one can draw crowds like that. It's still phenomenal that he's able to do that. No one can draw crowds like that. And it's just that he's such a celebrity. He brings people out. And you're right. I mean, I think it's more... New Jersey is more competitive, probably, Trump versus Biden, because of Biden, not so much Trump.
Right, right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Bob Menendez's son, Congressman Rob Menendez, a freshman congressman. He won the Democratic primary in the district against the Hoboken mayor, Ravi Bala. And Ravi Bala, the mayor of Hoboken, really tried to make corruption an issue, the issue, like get rid of Menendez and get rid of his son. So, what are your thoughts on that particular campaign and how Rob Menendez was able to not be painted with that brush of corruption?
Right. I'm not surprised. I think that Bob Menendez has a good base, particularly a good base, and I think that people are not seeing it that way. They're not seeing it the way we are. They like Bob Menendez. He's been around for a long time. He's worked hard as a U.S. senator. He's had a lot of good legislation, a lot of recognition. I think that flowed down to his son. So I'm not surprised at all. Yeah.
Right, right. And in a district like that up in Hudson County, if you win the primary, you're going to win the general election.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah. And it's hard to beat an incumbent.
Right.
Incumbency is very powerful.
Right. And even looking to the 3rd district where Andy Kim left his seat, you have Herb Conaway, one of your colleagues in the legislature.
Good guy.
Herb Conaway was there when you were in the legislature, right?
He was.
Physician.
He was.
He ran against Carol Murphy, a number of other candidates, Joe Cohn, civil rights lawyer, and he was able to win. What's interesting about the election on the Democratic side is they got rid of the party lines or those county lines, but those who had that institutional support, they still seem to do a little bit better overall. Herb Conaway would be one of those who did a little bit better overall. So do you still see significance in how, even though they got rid of the county lines, how that support was still very, very important and in securing that win?
The party faithful support is still going to be important going forward, particularly where you have Herb, who's been around for over 20 years and has pretty good name recognition in that area. So I'm not surprised at that. But to your point, without the party line going forward, everything changes next year for the primary, for gubernatorial politics. That's for sure, because that changes it dramatically.
Well, can you talk a little bit about, back over to the Republican side, and then Curtis Bayshaw? He did have that. The Republicans still kept their lines. He had more support at the counties as opposed to Christine Serrano-Glassner, who got an endorsement for Trump. So can you talk a little bit about how it helped him?
Yeah, because I think the party line helped him win. Yeah, no question about it. It would have been very close if he had not had that many party lines. For example, where I am in Somerset County, he was able to get the party line. If Christine had gotten the party line, it would have been a lot closer. So I think the party line still is very powerful, and that's why he won, because he was able to convince various committee people around the state that he's the better candidate for the general election.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you've been around New Jersey politics for many, many decades, and you've seen a lot of issues. They come, they go. You have somebody like, again, Bob Menendez. We don't know how his trial is going to go. He may be found guilty. He may be found not guilty. We don't know how it's going to go. But how do you think the people of New Jersey, if he were to be found not guilty again, you think the people would be fairly forgiving of that, and he would be able to? Do you think he has a chance of
I don't think he has a chance of winning. No, he would not. He could not win, given that that background and the fact they had 2 trials. I don't think he could win the election, particularly as running as an independent, and again doesn't have the party support. But he would be a major player. He would get a very good share of the vote, particularly up north in Hudson and Essex and Union counties, and I think that would help Curtis Bayshaw a lot.
Were you surprised that Tammy Murphy wasn't able to be more of a competitive candidate when she was running against Andy Kim, governor's wife? Incredible name recognition. Were you surprised that she dropped so early on in the campaign?
Well, what I was surprised at the most was the anger from the party faithful about her being a candidate. That surprised me the most. That I didn't. Perhaps I should have thought that might be a problem, but that was I could, talking to Democrats, they just didn't like the whole idea. And I guess, Laura, probably if Governor Murphy had not been in office, let's say had finished his office, and then she ran, I think it would have been a different story. But when you're sitting governor, now your wife wants to run for U.S. Senate seat. It just didn't sit well with the party faithful, and
Yeah.
it really hurt her badly. And of course, the media was a lot of difficult media for her. So the polling was really bad, and I think the party faithful must have just said, "Hey, we can't do this." And Andy Kim is a popular congressman in South Jersey.
Right, right. Yeah, and was there anything that struck you about his campaign? We had some debates. He seemed to be very, very sincere. He seemed very comfortable. Whereas Tammy Murphy, where she is out and about, she's advocating for her issues. She doesn't have that kind of experience working with constituents the same way that Andy Kim does. So it's an interesting comparison and contrast to where she has a lot of strong qualifications. And a lot of people will say, Tammy Murphy is the brains behind Phil Murphy, but it didn't play with the voters either.
It didn't work, and her lack of experience on the trail, and his ability to come across really well really hurt her a lot. And I think he maneuvered quite well, particularly with the party line thing. I'm sure the party faithful don't like him. The county chairs probably don't like it, the fact that he was able to go to court and abolish the line. They don't like that at all.
Right.
And it takes their power away, basically. But she really, I guess, found that it was much more difficult than she thought it would be in terms of getting around the state and connecting with the Democratic Party people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I said voters. It is connecting with the people.
Right.
Governor DiFrancesco, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about the primary election and then looking ahead to November. We thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think it'll be an interesting election in every state.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Laura.
New Jersey's senior senator Bob Menendez is on trial facing federal corruption charges, and now he's running for re-election as an independent. Joining me now to talk more about this is Micah Rasmussen, director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Micah, good to see you.
Good to be with you, Laura.
Yeah. All right. So Menendez, we know he is an independent running, excuse me, he is a Democrat running as an independent. Is it safe to say he didn't have a shot at winning the Democratic primary? So can you talk about why you think he's trying as an independent in the general?
So when politicians are on trial for their freedom, for their lives, and unfortunately maybe we have a little too much familiarity with this in New Jersey, they need to have something to trade. And their political careers, their political office that they hold is sometimes the thing that they have to trade. So resignation or stepping aside or getting out are all things that prosecutors are sometimes interested in. When you no longer have your office, you no longer have leverage. And so I think what Menendez is trying to do here is hold on to some leverage for as long as he can. He knew that the moment he said he wasn't running for re-election, some of that leverage went away. He's trying to hold on to any sort of relevance that he's got as long as he's got. So buying himself some time from June until August, which is the deadline for when he would have to get out of the race, buys him several weeks more of at least being theoretically relevant in the political process.
And in order to run as an independent, can you just walk us a little bit through that process of what you have to do? A candidate, because they didn't run in the primary, they have to go through a process of getting signatures. Can you walk us through that?
That's right. Yeah, it's called nomination by petition. When you are not nominated by a political party, you can be nominated by petition. You do have to submit several hundred signatures on a petition in Trenton by 4 o'clock by the day of the primary. And the reason the petitions are due the same day as the primary election is because we don't want sore losers to lose the primary and decide then that they're running as an independent. So we set the date that they're due the same day as the primary. You can get them met. And in this case, what Menendez was able to do was fall back on some of his most core, personal, oldest supporters to circulate petitions, primarily in Hudson County, primarily in the towns that he came up through. And some of his oldest supporters signed this petition to put him on the ballot, potentially to run as an independent. Again, this is a really hard road. Nobody thinks he's really got a shot at actually winning the race. The question is, could he get enough votes to play a spoiler effect? And I think some of us are skeptical about that.
Right. Well, let's get right into it. We have Congressman Andy Kim. He is now the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate. So how does this impact the campaign? On the Republican side, we have Curtis Bashaw, who won the Republican primary despite Christine Sarno-Glasner getting that endorsement from Donald Trump. So can you talk a little bit about how this could factor into the campaign?
Yeah. So if an independent Democrat could siphon enough votes away from Andy Kim, let's say 10% of the vote, 15% of the vote, then theoretically that could deny Andy Kim enough votes to win the election. The real question is whether or not Menendez could get that number of votes. Look, if you go back to the year 2000 and you look at the 9 Senate races we've had in New Jersey in that period of time, the average margin of victory for the Democrat has been 11.5 points. And so if Menendez is going to play a decisive role, he'd have to win by larger than that margin, which has been an average of 11.5 points. I think most of us are skeptical that he could get that high. There has been some polling on this that says he could potentially retain between 5 and 9% of the vote. Could he make it closer? Yes, he could make it closer. Could he potentially get enough votes to win? Well, here's what I'll say, Laura. He definitely, the threshold question begins with, does he have a clean legal bill of health? If he doesn't have a clean legal bill of health by the time we get to November, I think the sense that he could get many votes at all is all but evaporated. So that's a really big if. He'd have to get off scot-free from this trial first.
And I can't help but notice all the political campaign buttons you have behind you on display there. Right, so let's give our viewers a little bit of context too. The last time a Republican was elected to the U.S. Senate in New Jersey, we're going back to the 70s. Scan those buttons. Has there ever been an independent?
These are just governor. These are just governor.
Yeah, but we've not elected a statewide independent.
You are exactly right. We have not elected a statewide independent. We don't have a strong independent streak in New Jersey. Look, in Vermont, they've elected Bernie Sanders. In Maine, they've elected Angus King. We have not in Arizona. They didn't elect Kirsten Sinema as an independent, but she became an independent. I would not say that in New Jersey at this point we have a strong independent streak. And like you said, we haven't sent a Republican to the Senate since 1972, and so it's really an open question whether or not we send anybody but Democrats to the U.S. Senate at this point.
Yeah. So once that indictment came out against him, once he was charged, even some of his most loyal supporters said, no, you've got to resign. You can't do this. Like you mentioned, there are a few thousand signatures that he has in support of him. But again, in order to even run or to mount any type of campaign, you still need money. How does he raise money? Can you use campaign funds? And what about how he's paying for his defense? Like how financially does he stay afloat? Because I guess he's not going to be using the gold bars. Oh, I just said that out
loud. But he is using a lot of those campaign dollars on his legal defense. He started, when he was indicted, he had about $8 million sitting in the bank. And that's a good amount of money. That's a good war chest. But he has drawn it down at a very fast rate. He's down to, I think, under $5 million at this point. He's not raising more money. I think the last fundraising report showed under $20,000 in new money raised. So donors are very aware that this money is not going toward a future political campaign. it is going toward a legal defense. So I think the sense that he can raise new money is more theoretical than it is real. And I think he is burning through his cash at a pretty good rate, as you would expect would happen with an expensive criminal trial.
There isn't a lot of national attention in the media about Menendez,
That's right.
from time to time.
That's
and are
right.
people getting numb to this? Like, you never know what can happen in New Jersey if he's exonerated or if he's found not guilty of the charges. But, you do have a former president who's a convicted felon who is running, has got no problem raising money. Obviously, Bob Menendez is a lot different. But can you just talk a little bit about, that public perception? And are people getting numb to it because there are so many people? We've got Hunter Biden on trial. There's a lot going on.
Well, so I agree with you that Trump is in sort of a category by himself because he has the ability to go out and generate publicity no matter what he does. And sometimes that's good publicity, sometimes it's bad publicity. But he gets on and he does one of his rallies, and that is news. And there will be outlets that will cover that. I don't think you can say the same thing about Bob Menendez. I don't think you can say the same thing really about any statewide figure in New Jersey. In fact, one of the things that we're looking at is the difference between how much this trial has generated interest or media coverage versus the one in 2017. I think the media landscape has changed. The ability to get to that trial in Lower Manhattan every day has changed. It's not in the Newark airport. It's not in the Newark courthouse, excuse me. And so I think there are people who are paying maybe less attention to the trial now. But I will also say this. The public had very little trouble understanding the gold bars, understanding that this is not why we send somebody to the Senate to be paid gold bars by somebody who's looking for favors in exchange for those gold bars. And that was something the public latched onto immediately. It was very easy to understand that. And I think it's going to be tough for Bob Menendez to get out from under that perception that has really set in among voters in New Jersey.
And when Menendez made his announcement that he is running as an independent, he was saying, I look forward to my name being cleared, and I'm going to run on my record in the Senate and over the past 18, however many years. I'm going to be relying on that. So do you think that he would even have the, let's say, because we've moderated some debates before, if we have a debate between Andy Kim and Curtis Bashaw, do you think Menendez would debate or want to get involved in that to talk about, or would he just steer clear of all of that and really try and control that? What do you think?
That's a good question. We did invite Menendez to debate when we invited Andy Kim and Mrs. Murphy, and he chose not to respond to that. And so, again, I guess I put a lot back on whether or not he's got a clean legal bill of health by the time there's a debate, because he certainly doesn't want the debate to be dominated by questions about his criminal trial. He probably would get those questions anyway. I don't see him getting out from under those questions anyway. But whether or not he wants to participate, I guess has to do with how much he's trying to build his political sense of political realism, his sense of political relevance. Again, if this is for the benefit of prosecutors, then I think that by that time, he may be less into the run. He may be less into trying to convince everybody that's still politically relevant. If this is designed to get him through the trial in some way, to have some leverage, to have something to trade with, maybe for the potential of an appeal, then maybe he'll want to keep up those appearances. Maybe he will actually participate in a debate. But otherwise, I think he may lose interest in what is clearly a very uphill battle for him.
And just final thoughts here. Curtis Bashaw, the Republican who is running, again, we're a blue state. The numbers, if we were to hold it now, it would very much favor Andy Kim. But would you think that this has the potential for being gettable for Republicans, the first time in a really long time that Republicans have a shot at getting this seat?
Well, Bashaw is in many ways a political moderate. His positions are moderate. When we had our conversation with him, he was unapologetically. He wasn't apologizing to the far right. He said, "I'm against book bans," things like that. He's openly gay, right? He talks about where his pro-choice position is. Although I think we've got to hear more from him on that. So there is a lot that we still need to find out. But he certainly presents as a political moderate, and that is the right answer in New Jersey, where you're not just going to win with Republican voters. There aren't enough of them. You need independents, you need Democrats. And so that is smart. That is the right recipe. However, let's say the thing that's hard, or the thing that you've got to reconcile beyond ideology, is that we have a lot of really good political moderates that have been left in the dust running for the U.S. Senate, whether it's Pete Dawkins, whether it's Bob Franks, whether it is, any Millicent Fenwick, any of the long history of really well-regarded moderate Republicans who have not been able to break through. And so that is the challenge for him.
Yeah. Well, it will not be a dull summer, that's for sure. Micah, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It's always so good to see you.
You too, Lara. Thank you very much.
And that will do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.